So the other influence was a changed attitude towards the world. The changed perspective towards African Americans reflected the fact that the United States wished to become a world leader when many former colonies were restless and sought independence. You have to imagine that the United States was very much dealing with various different nations in the world, and that it's suddenly, because it was becoming a world leader, suddenly other nations were very interested in how it treated its citizens. So therefore, African Americans, the treatment of African Americans became an issue for instance, Indians, for other different groups around the world who felt that they had been colonized, and the United States was posing itself as a new force in the world, a new force of democracy. And this, of course, became a thorn in its side. The way African Americans were treated in the South was becoming more and more public and becoming less and less acceptable on a world scale. So why African Americans? The South's treatment of its African Americans, particularly after the Comintern of 1928. The Comintern, you will of course remember, was the Communist International, and it in 1928 made America's treatments of its African Americans the primary propaganda point about the United States. So I'm just going to try and get me back in the frame here, because you've got to see a bit of me, don't you? There I am. Okay, so basically what we're talking about is how communist ideas concentrated on African Americans. In fact, the communists had a bizarre perspective on this, whereby a 25-year-old black communist called James Ford, as I recall, I'm doing this from memory, presented a plan to the Comintern that said that African Americans should basically separate out and claim a section of the South for their own, and that this was the right way to go about having a separate nation, a black nation within a nation. And this became the perspective of the Soviet Union. This was adopted at the Comintern, and it became their perspective for many years, despite the fact that it was fairly ludicrous in the way that it was set out. So back to the PowerPoint. We have then the Scottsboro Boys trial. This is an enormously important trial in the United States, and it established the Communist Party as the #1 defender of African American rights, coming soon after that Comintern as it did. No crime in American history, let alone a crime that never occurred, produced as many trials, convictions, reversals, and retrials as did an alleged gang rape of 2 white girls by 9 black teenagers on the Southern Railroad freight run from Chattanooga to Memphis on March 25, 1931. What had happened was that there had been a fight between 2 rival gangs who were both hitching a lift rather illegally, one white and one black. And these black boys got the better of the white boys. The white boys then employed 2 girls, 2 white girls who turned out to be prostitutes. There's a picture of Ruby Bates there, one of them who recanted her testimony. And they claimed that these black teenagers had raped them in a gang rape. And as far as we can see, it never took place. But what happened, it was a very open and shut case. It would have been a usual Southern sort of lynching issue, or they would have been shut. Mostly they would have been, it was a capital crime, so many of them would have been executed for their crime. But the Communist Party, the International Labor Defense, suddenly got hold of this story, and there had been an open and shut trial, and they had been convicted and were awaiting sentencing when the International Labor Defense, a Communist Party organization, affiliated legal defense organization rather, hired Sam Leibovitz, a New York attorney. And the case was then turned into an international cause célèbre. It became a very important case, and it very much defined the way African Americans were treated in the South. And this embarrassing bringing up of the Southern unfair legal system was something that the United States then realized that it needed to turn its attention to as the whole thing unfolded over the next 8 years.